move the d pawn, then bishop c2, bishop c3 could be a dream scenario. Yeah, so many questions. I'm very excited to see Fabi, and there is a handshake.
And we're off. Fabi, he goes for the move 1 e4, and we've got the Scandi on the board.
Wow. And e4, d5, ed, knight f6, the Scandinavian gambit. Yeah, trying to take with the knight on d5, but the point is what I really like in the white's structure, that d4, knight f3, that knight on f3 is the perfect piece covering the e5 square. If the knight would be on h1, would be a completely different story. I'm not afraid of the Scandinavian here.
I think Levon took the advice of not bringing his queen out to heart, Peter. He's not capturing the d5 pawn. He doesn't want to take it. Well, now he does. Knight takes pawn on the board. We also have to watch out for ideas of this check, which does hit the g7 pawn, but perhaps knight e6, as we looked at it earlier, seems fine for black.
Wow, and Fabi goes c4, inviting knight takes e3. Will we see d takes e3 strategy, and then white bishop gets to c3, let me trade queens, all I need is a draw,
yeah, no.
Perfect situation. But if you don't take, then you have to lose time, and then white will also get d4 in. And you get my setup with bishop c2, bishop c3, eventually long castle. Wow, this is very unfortunate for Levon, and he has to burn the clock because this is a desperate situation. The only good move is knight takes e3, but you can't play it because then you end up in drawish construction.
He takes control of the g4 square, and Levon, given the match situation, wants to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. He's striking. This is a pawn sacrifice, but taking it would just invite eventually black's pieces out into the game. Attacking that pawn, I believe, Peter.
Also taking first on d1, making sure that white will lose the right of castling if he captures with the king, otherwise knight retreat is very scary.
And it's not a pleasant move to play at all. Well, we are seeing it. He goes for it because Fabi wants to trade queens. Yes. He needs only a draw, and then Lev will have to prove that he has more to fight for in that endgame. And he does it. It's going to be a grind. Yeah,
king takes e1, then king goes to e2, knight f3, the bishops are beautifully placed. Yeah, Fabiano is very happy, and what is good for him that he can play quite quickly. There are no critical decisions to be made here.
But can black start targeting the pawns immediately? Knight to e6. My idea is if you go b4, I'm thinking about e5.
Yeah, I won't be protecting those pawns. I don't care about the pawns. All I need is stability. Yeah, Levon goes bishop e5. Correct. You had to play that fantastic move before white gets bishop c3, which would have made perfect sense. What a vision by Levon.
Really nice stuff, Nicholas, and even though the queens are off the board, it is an exciting battle with Fabi having no right to castle anymore.
Yeah, Fabi gave away some of his advantage when he took on c5. He could have gone for d5. This would have been a more ambitious approach. So he goes into his endgame now, bishop e5, very nice, hitting the pawn on b2. So you need to play king c1 or king c2 to defend the pawn on b2. But you rather would like to have this king on e2, where it's much more harmoniously placed, where it's not in the way of your pieces. So now maybe knight e6, bring the knight out to go after this pawn. And knight e6, knight f3, maybe bishop f4, you will win this pawn back. And it is an endgame which has a familiar structure, 4 pawns here, 2 on the other side, 3 for white on both sides, which is a structure that can arise out of many standard chess openings. And definitely Levon will have some chances here, even though position is equal, the queens are off, but there's still a lot of pieces, still a lot to be played.
Yeah, and he goes for the double-edged bishop c6 move. Yeah, he's trying to create as much tension as possible. Look at black's bishops. Yeah, Fabi goes knight e2, trying to stabilize, and he's dreaming of bishop c3. If white gets bishop c3, that's the stabilizing move that you really need. That monster bishop on e5 needs to be eliminated, needs to be traded off. If he gets that, he will be in a comfortable situation.
Levon's just not rushing with what is a very natural approach in this position to recapture material, to restore material balance, and finally he does it from another route. Also, always watch out for tricks like knight f5, but as long as the g2 pawn is under attack, thanks to that little move that Levon made, it will be under control, but knight f5 is an idea in the air.
Yeah, the unbalance is the position that Levon can still castle. He has the right to castle long, he has the right to castle short, while white's king is stuck on c1. Why is Fabi taking his time? Isn't bishop c3 the ideal kind of scenario? Just give back the pawn and make sure that after we activate the king, get that rook from h1 into the game. What are we missing?
To c3, it looks like the move that you really want to make here. What's going on, Nicholas? Are we missing some tactics after bishop c3? I don't see anything.
No, you're not missing any tactics, but maybe he wants to go for more with f4. He did play bishop c3 after all.
Of course, he's not in a must-win situation. He needs to stabilize. Yeah, he just needs a draw.
But he did burn a lot of time.
And still the position feels a little bit uncomfortable after bishop takes c3, knight takes c3, knight takes c5. At least from my human eye, it looks a little bit uncomfortable with the king on c1, but maybe there's not much to it.
Yeah, I feel like some rook d1, b4, f3, just all these stabilizing moves, bishop c2, king b2, if I ever get that. And by the way, I also would love to cut that king so that you can't castle short, yeah? We might be seeing this. Capture on c3. I was thinking maybe black can play a5 just to make sure that knight takes c5, b4 is stopped.
Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense, because knight takes c5, b4 is kind of annoying on the board.
So Levon really controlling the board. He doesn't rush with capturing c5, improves the position of his bishops first. Now he's taken more space and more key squares on the queen side. Eventually the knight will land onto c5. And as long as there's asymmetry in the pawn structure, we see a 3 versus 2 majority for Fabi on the queen side, a 4 versus 3 majority for Levon on the king side. We can have an eventual race at some point with one of the players creating a passed pawn.
Yes, but the good news for Fabi is that some natural moves, knight takes c5, then b3, bishop c2, king b2, and he will have this a3, b4. It's a very straightforward play, and everything is compact, everything is protected. All these moves you can do quite quickly.
And it might be something to think about is push the pawn, Peter?
Wow, okay, Levon first burns the tempo on e6, covering the d5 square. Was this necessary? Now white gets time to play b3, king b2, bishop c2. You can't stop that.
So if Fabi starts with b3, a4 will never, and it's on the board. He wants to get b4 in to push this knight, which eventually lands on c5.
Yeah, that's such a monster knight. Yeah, Levon takes on c5 now, king b2 or bishop c2. Probably bishop c2 first. A little bit more flexible, not to run into some a4, b4, a3 check, just in case you don't want those craziness in time trouble. But Fabi, down to 1 minute 40 seconds. Okay, Levon also burned a lot of time, but this game started at 5 minutes. Blitz game, yeah, bishop c2, h5.
The pawns
you have
are coming.
to, yeah.
That's why you have the majority?
h4 fixing, you're not allowing h4, rook h5, rook g5, yeah, otherwise black would activate that rook. Knight g4 takes, take g3, we're gonna see this.
Both pawns were hanging.
It's a stable construction. Nicholas, any thoughts?
Apparently this was a good transformation for Levon with a small advantage now. You can think about long castle here. This makes a lot of sense. If I could play it, you could bring the rook over here, let the rook enter the game. Instead we see, oh, we don't have a move yet. You can also think about g5 and then opening up the h file. What was played?
King c7 connects the rooks. So still finishing development here. Yeah, at some point I think g5 will be a very real idea on the board.
Yeah, but okay, ag, and I always have rook d2, tranquilo, yeah, protecting the f2 pawn.
But you could also defend and then play g5, rook g8, g5 concepts.
Yeah, but a3, b4, once a3, b4 is coming, I'm gonna hit that knight, the bishop on c6 will be also vulnerable. I feel like...
How do you fight against a3, b4 with black?
Yeah, well, with some dynamic play on the other side of the board, but how do you do that? I don't see it coming. Maybe this king c7 exactly lost that half of a tempo. Yeah, Levon goes rook h5, but this doesn't really scare me at all. a3, rook d2, all these natural moves can still be played.
On the board, so he does go for this idea.
But okay, ag, rook g5, then black also gives up the h file.
We're seeing that happen, and now b4. Do you go for b4 here?
Well, there is this knight d7, knight e5 route, yeah, if you are rushing, maybe I'm not even, but okay, Fabi goes for it, why not? That was the plan.
Because after knight d7, the one thing is that because of that pawn on g4, you get a nice stronghold on f3 for your bishop.
Yeah, and then the c5 square. Yeah, we cannot give up the c5 square. That would be just basically strategically very risky. Unless you have some knight a4, direct knight a4, but no, rook d4. Yeah, this makes sense. Protecting the c4
really nice
pawn.
how this bishop on c2 controls the f5 square.
Yeah, and setting up rook a d1. Yeah, he wants to double on the d file, then he will be threatening b4, b5. Yeah, now black captures, so he will take on a1. 30 seconds for Levon.
Wow. And the pawns are coming. Levon at some point wants to break with e5, f4.
But then the e4 square will be there, yeah? The white will immediately sit with
But
bishop e4.
you have to create chances,
You
how
have to,
else?
yeah. Okay, rook h5, yeah, he wants to activate that rook. Basically with f5 he made sure that bishop e4 is out of the situation, yeah? White can't trade more pieces. But white is setting up some dangerous threats, maybe.
e6, bishop a4.
But maybe they are looking more dangerous than they are in reality. Knight e5, now the e6 pawn is weak. Yeah, white can, yeah, b5, then bishop b3. No, Levon in trouble, 16 seconds. He's in trouble.
Back. He keeps this pawn defended.
Yeah, bishop b3, and then rook d6, b6. Too many things are coming, and only white is playing.
Fabi is also touching the 30-second mark, so anything can happen, Peter, in this kind of a position. It's not over yet for Levon.
No, absolutely not. Bishop a4, wow, this is a very concrete
Setting up
move.
some tricks on the board.
b6.
Stopped.
Wow, but allowing c6, yeah, but the black king will feel quite safe on c7.
He keeps this e6 pawn guarded, so there are no threats after bishop b3. Well, now where does he improve the position? The rook is coming.
It's a wow, and Fabi down to 10 seconds.
He needs to give a check, but I don't see a check for white. If there's a check that arises, black is in big trouble. But how do you make it happen?
Yeah, rook d2.
I think this knight wants to reroute itself.
Yeah, but knight f3, black starts to jump. Rook a2, yeah, trying to...
The check is coming in from a7.
But okay, it's not that scary, but... Okay, bishop c4. And then rook h1, rook h2, but king b2, king a3. Just in time to get out and protect the pawn. Six seconds versus 4.
They're playing on 2 seconds increment. The rook jumps in now.
Yeah, this is a good trade for Fabi.
The c6 pawn. Rook d7,
wow,
that's
rook
a checkmate in one.
Knight c7, knight c7.
What did Levon do?
And we're getting moves so fast that our live board can't keep up with it. I think we might have to zoom into the players. And we have a result.
Wow, what happened? It all fall apart. 170 heart rate from Fabiano. What happened?
Well, Fabi is still alive. That's the good news. And we have the moves coming in. He just went back with the knight to d8 and the white pawn.
Levon won. Levon won.
What?
How on earth did he
Levon won.
won?
c7. And how do you win this? How?
But the kings are on e5, d4.
Yeah, well, no, this... Did Fabi lose on time?
All right, we're going to get an update of what really happened. We lost. And
oh, wow, he blundered the rook with rook b7. knight
Fabi
b7.
blundered the rook for the second time in this match.
Wow.
Rook b8, lost the rook in one move. Did this really happen?
It happened, yeah. That's why it finished so quickly.
Unbelievable. In this position, when we lost the board, Peter, the players were blitzing out their moves. Knight c5 was played by Levon.
Yeah, look at this. The evaluation bar screams that now white is completely winning, but of course with 2 seconds or 5 seconds on the clock, you just never know. Knight a4 looked like a very natural move.
He played c7, threatening to...
With rook b7, yeah, so it basically the blunder was already c7 with 2-3 seconds on the clock. He had foreseen c7, rook b7, I attacked the b6 pawn, I'm setting. We're gonna see Armageddon.
Oh my gosh.